Great. Well, welcome everybody. We have an hour session for good interactive discussion of all the ways that valuation creation can be created from lots of different domains, from logistics to legal and so on. And we'll have lots of time for Q&A, so please post questions either online. I will bring my laptop up in a moment and check questions coming in from the online attendees around the world, or in person as we go. So to kick off, please, I'll ask you all to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Yes, James David Williams. I'm one half of the Barlow and Williams team. We are an M&A law firm with a focus on e-commerce, SaaS, whatever has it. Anything kind of 1 million to 20 million enterprise value is our sweet spot.
I am Kevin Fisher. I'm the president of Kapoq. We are a end-to-end software tool to help brands manage the selling process on Amazon and Walmart. That's it for me. Cool.
Let's see this work. Sick. I'm Mike Freaky. I am a managing partner at IGPPC. We are a full-service Amazon ad agency. We focus on, call it businesses in the $10 to $100 million rev space on Amazon. I've been in Amazon ads for almost a decade, and prior to this, I spent the last 3 years at Perch. So anybody in the aggregator space who knows Perch, I was the head of ads there. Super fun time.
Hey guys, I'm Dan Ashburn. We're a tech-enabled brand aggregator platform. Our pipeline is community-driven, so we have over 800 brand owners and founders as part of our community that we educate in our playbooks and our frameworks. We're predominantly Amazon-focused right now, expanding into D2C, and myself and my management team over here have been operating the platform for just over 10 years now, and have rode all of the waves and chapters that have gone on in the space, and we've personally consulted, at this point, 10,000 brands individually, down into the P&L, and all of the operating kind of frameworks in between.
Excellent. I'm Lou Casados, representing Getida, an SIB company. Getida is the global leader in FBA revenue recovery, servicing over 12,000 customers globally today. SIB, our parent company, we're very passionate about increasing profitability and EBITDA percentages through cost reduction across your entire organization. Typically, people will see about 30 to 32% reduction in fixed costs when engaging with us. Excited to be here today. Thank you.
My name is Casey Roy. I am CEO and founder of Standvast Fulfillment Services and Technology Supply Chain. We'll get into what we do with you later on if you want to come talk to us, but we help e-commerce, Amazon aggregators, direct-to-consumer, retailers create a fulfillment platform and supply chain solution. And I'm also a reformed Amazonian, so can answer any old questions on Amazon as well.
Thank you all. So just to kick off, I want to give some context and maybe ask some of you to build on the context. So, December 2021, from the 4T Group's perspective, was the peak of e-commerce. That was when the offers for brands were really crazy. Getting up to 7x for an Amazon FBA brand was probably one of the highest offers we've heard of. So that was sort of the peak. Obviously, there's been a lot of change since then. There's been a lot of focus on bottom line as opposed to top line. Those years were probably the years of survival, maybe 22, 23, 24 was sort of, still really tough. As I mentioned this morning, the mood here at this event last year was sort of 4 out of 10. We'll canvass the audience maybe after the cocktails. Hopefully that'll get us to a 5. And I think, and I'll present it later on, I think there's a little bit more of renewed optimism, hopefully going into this year. But that's sort of a quick summary of how we see the years of the last 4 to 5 years. What do you all think, just in terms of context? Obviously, linking it back to value creation and maybe how tough it's been and how maybe easier it might be. Question, Lou?
Yeah, I think
or Dan?
I think 2022, 23 kind of coming into that back end piece was kind of the writing was on the wall, and 24 for the guys that stuck through it and kind of had the resilience or were forced to stick through it, kind of had that sobering year, right, where they had to sober up and focus on bottom line and drive supply chain efficiency and realize that they can't just spend everything everywhere and at all cost, and that if they wanted this to be sustainably profitable, they had to focus down. And then I also think there was a big focus towards kind of brand positioning and brand depth, and realizing that any kind of catalog of product that was calling themselves a brand, that had bought and badged off Alibaba and called itself a brand, had no revenue retention or customer retention, and there was a lot of shedding of the catalog, right? But yeah, I think last year was kind of the sobering year of kind of getting all the ducks in a row and trying to reorganize, streamline, and then that sets us up for a better 25.
Yeah,
Lou?
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. I would say almost it was the era of accidental success, right? Where you could just launch and sell and everyone was winning. And then now, as we've seen it become harder, because frankly, you have to be more sophisticated, right? Brands are starting to understand, to your point, I have to actually be a brand. I have to actually have a strategy. Operations need to talk to advertising, needs to talk to supply chain, needs to tie directly to our business initiatives. So you're just seeing more sophistication, I think, take place, which is going to naturally eliminate some of the less sophisticated players that may have benefited from that earlier time. But I think what you see now is the players that understand that dedication to operational excellence as a profitability lever and not something that just needs to check a box, so to speak.
Just to remind people for Q&A, especially those dialing in, could you please submit the questions via the Q&A tab on Zoom? It's much easier for us to chair those questions. And anyone in the audience who's too shy to put up their hand and be vocal, please feel free to submit questions as we go for the audience. Okay, so question number one, as you look back in 2024, for each of your areas of skill set and domain, what were one or two big things that people did to create value? We'll start. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll speak to, M&A volume was down in 24, continued to be down, slightly up from 23. But I will say most of the M&A transactions we had in e-com were distressed deals last year, just by virtue of my practice. And so the real value there was for the buyers to know what they were truly great at in terms of fixing a supply chain or running ads or, in a particular channel or whatever that was, and then going out and finding a business or taking advantage of an opportunity that came to them that needed that specific thing, right? So the real value driver in M&A last year was people who were opportunistic, but they could only be opportunistic because they truly knew what their core competencies were. People who try to be a little more scattershot, I'm not sure those deals are going to work out.
Thank you, James. Kevin, from a brand management perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about a very different angle here than that. But so, I mean, when you think about the things that have the biggest impact, it's obviously going to be something fundamental that that is driving a lot of your business. From our perspective, I think the biggest way to find those sort of issues is to make sure that you have sound analytics. There's so much data that's available now. Throughout across all the marketplaces, really, we focus pretty heavily on Amazon. But if you plug into that data and actually look at what's going on under the hood, it's really important to make sure that the strategies that you're actually executing make sense and are aligned with what's really going on there, and that the strategy you're trying to execute corresponds to the strategy you're actually executing. Things like getting your return on ad spend correctly on a per SKU basis, and looking at that unit economics. Things like making sure that I somewhat said it earlier, that your operational team keeping things in stock and inventory is aligned with what you're doing on the media side. It's way easier to do that nowadays because there's tools like Kapoq, because there's a lot more data available on the APIs. But there's a lot of money to be wasted getting that wrong. And I think that people are getting better at it.
There's a typo in the booklet, just so everyone knows. The 4T group, hands up, we made a mistake. We described Kapoq as the same as Barlow and Williams. Kapoq is not a law firm. While Kevin does look like a very smart lawyer in terms of how he's dressed today, Sincere apologies to the Kapoq team there, but it's a brand management outsourced tool.
Not a problem, and thanks. But yeah, if you have legal questions, please direct them at him. I will not give you the answers you're looking for.
Very good. Mike.
Awesome. Let's see. I can go with a few different directions. You can see me out there at the IGPPC stand. I came up with 4, but I'm gonna go with 2. One thing that people I worked with did really, really well, I'll say over the last couple of years, try to work better with customer lifetime value in an Amazon perspective and align that within your ad goals. So you want to set yourself up to actually acquire net new customers on Amazon in a way that might not necessarily apply in a standard like .com environment. Not affiliated with them. A lot of the people I worked with used nozzle.ai to try to keep it very actionable. We were able to better identify which specific products led to the best long-term sort of growth strategy for us. I'll also tie that to better using brand analytics. If you don't want to go with a third party and you are in fact selling on Amazon, right now is the literal best time to go to brand analytics, to the customer retention workflow section. You can actually set your date range to all of 2024 versus all of 2023. Look at what Amazon is defining your customer repeat rates at. Look at what your standard retention cycle is like. Most businesses I worked with would range anywhere from every 30 days to every 60 or so for a product. Amazon will give you that data. I'll know it's not good. There's a lot of issues with it. Just to clarify, Amazon defines a repeat customer as somebody who purchases in a very specific time period. So they have to have purchased twice in 2024. They purchased at the end of 2023 and again in 2024, does not count. They purchased in December last month and then again this month. That does not count. So this is why I also say find good third parties to let you leverage this data. The other one I'll dive into, just standard brand analytics, search query performance, define your market. I have people, I advise them, call it 15, 20 terms that will make up the vast majority of your sales. And when I say your sales, I really mean when customers are seeking out a product that your product fits that need. Find the top 15 to 20 terms that will make up the majority of that value. Track your own conversion rates relative to the rest of the market. We use this within our advertising to, one, make sure you're targeting the right terms. Also figure out when you should not be targeting it. And it's been game changing.
Can I ask just, I can't resist, given you worked at Perch, if looking back in terms of value creation at Perch, what would you have done differently if you were CEO and looking back?
Oh man.
Or is that a question for the drinks?
No, number one thing I would say is just know when to say no. Both to a deal, I think is everybody can look back and say you probably acquired something that maybe you shouldn't have acquired. But I think some of that also comes back to understanding like what are tests that probably just don't even make sense to run. I've worked with brands, for example, where somebody gets it in their head, and I'll say, well, I won't say, but somebody gets it in their head, hey, we really want to go after men's gift. This is such a great term. We know if it's Q4, people are going to be shopping for gifts, so we need to find people shopping for gifts. But when people are actually trying to make a purchase, they're generally speaking, they know what kind of product they want to buy on Amazon. And if they're still shopping gift, they're going to convert at a really low rate and you're going to lose a lot of money. So that's probably not a great test to run. And if you do, please have guardrails, please.
Thank you, Mike. Dan?
Yeah, so I'm going to be covering a bunch of this in our workshop tomorrow. We've got a couple of hours to go deep. And I say this coming from owning and operating over $100 million on Amazon as a platform today. And we're doing that at 20% contribution margins, 44% gross margins. We're at 15% EBITDA on a very small team. And we're just getting started. I also say it from having the purview of thousands of brands coming through our operating playbooks and frameworks through our software and through our consulting. For those of you that know us, we run events all around the world as well. So I've got a pretty good handle on kind of what's going on at a broad level, and we actually operate what we teach, which is a big difference to a lot of people in the space. I think it really comes down, we can talk about tactics, we can talk about strategies, and yes, they all fit within a wider strategic frame. But I think what it takes now is a cohesiveness between strategy and operations. So if we break down operations, we're talking efficient, streamlined supply chain that enables the margin for customer acquisition. That's the operational piece. Then when we talk about the strategy of customer acquisition, understanding the different product types on the platform, yes, we can talk about average order value, we can talk about lifetime value, but ultimately understanding, okay, what is the framework and what is the playbook for the channel that I'm operating on? Amazon, Shopify, each have completely different acquisition strategies that fit within a wider decision-making framework. And then everything in between within that, what does my margin profile and what does my individual SKU contribution need to look like to roll up to a profitable, sustainable operation? So I think the days of kind of looking at these as silos and understanding, okay, yeah, sure, we're going to fix supply chain by consolidating manufacturers, partnering with better 3PL networks, using Amazon AWD instead of shipping everything into FBA. We can have all those conversations, but what's that enabling me to do strategically? And then how am I deploying my time-focused capital in a focused way that's going to generate a profitable result? And that's the cohesiveness between the two that I feel the kind of institutional layer of this industry just like sleepwalked into the last few years and are now starting to wake up to, whilst the operators in the space, like myself and the guys at Nexus, are kind of been here screaming and shouting, saying, hey guys, you're missing this point. And I think moving forward, as we kind of go forward into 25, that's where the focus is going to be. And then obviously you're going to see a bunch of acceleration with AI, which is going to drive bottom line efficiency and all that stuff come through as well. But yeah, guys, show up to the workshop tomorrow and we'll show you how we're doing this as well.
And just to note, the workshop involves cars, cigars, and bourbon.
And bourbon, yeah.
So there's added incentives. Lou.
Sounds like a hell of a workshop. I would definitely recommend it, and couldn't agree more with you on that, right? And just in terms of when we talk about channel diversification, it's the strategic diversification that's important, right? You go back to like 2021, we were talking about, right, the talk track was be everywhere, right? If you remember, like Channel Advisor, now Rhythm, right? It's like be on 300 channels, and that's great. Well, that's not great, right? In reality, it's like be where you should be where your customers are, and then maximize the heck out of those. But outside of that, I would say another area is really focusing on cost reduction and revenue recovery as profit centers for the business. And what I mean by that is identifying where there are areas of cost that can be made, whether it's an operational fixed cost or it's an FBA revenue recovery play, and then taking that money and reinvesting them into the strategic initiatives that you have your North Stars aligned on for the year, right? That can be transformative for businesses. In one case, we were able to recover a 7-figure amount for a seller in about 60 days. They reinvested that into a highly converting, PPC strategy. Results phenomenal, right? So those types of, I guess, out of the box ways of thinking, so to speak, with how to reinvest those funds are critical.
One of the more successful retailers, e-commerce retailers, sort of a long time ago said, price, selection, service, convenience, trust. Forget about the future, forget about predicting the future. You do those things relentlessly and you will be successful over time. What they also realized was when they didn't focus on a supply chain, they were dubbed Amazon.bomb. And once they focused on a supply chain, they're now who they are. And I think that's a core which has been missed through the last few years is the supply chain is the enabler to price. It is the enabler to service. It is the enabler to diversification of channels. And it is the enabler to trust, ultimately. And so we firmly believe what we've seen is our clients, and it might be self-selecting, but our clients are coming to us because they need to focus on margins. They need to focus on service. They need to deliver 2 days. They need to be able to get it into Amazon or Walmart or everybody else far more efficiently than they're doing today and have that control over their supply chain so they can diversify channels, grow their channels, and do so in a very margin favorable manner, which has not historically been what had happened in the past.
Sticking with you, Casey, let's go back 20 years, back to 2005, right? You were at Amazon, you wrote the first 6-page memo for FBA. Like, go back to that time and since then, what are some of the, say, lessons or observations you have that might be useful to the people in the room?
Yeah, I'd go back to this. Don't seek to necessarily try to predict the future or try to think about what all your competitors are doing, but focus on the core first principles of what the customers, your consumers want. That would be one big message. The second big message is, it is the discipline of delivering and the details around relentlessly improving that are super important. And like I said, supply chain was the core enabler. We wrote FBA because most of our sellers couldn't get access to a supply chain, and we felt super awesome that we were giving all of these sellers this access to this wonderful supply chain. And and so I think similarly today, though, the barriers for most of the aggregators, the sellers, whether you're primarily on Shopify or whether you're primarily on Amazon, your supply chain is sort of the barrier to that growth and that scale. And really the enabler for that is new solutions that you don't have to build yourself and leverage people who know how to do it. And you can work on what you do best, which is normally product development, brand, marketing, and I think we can help for the rest of that. And that's sort of some lessons learned.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience so far? I'm sorry. Hey, Ben.
Complicated question, but I think when I think about value creation, I'm thinking it's two buckets. One is like if I make more profit, I'm creating more value. I want to talk about efficiency and so on. And then the other bucket is like which of those revenue streams or profit streams are more valuable. And so obviously there's quite an Amazon focused audience, but we have Amazon and D2C, and I'm thinking, well, the D2C revenue is probably more valuable, but what makes it more valuable? Is it the fact that it's a repeat customer? Is it the customer ownership? Is organic brand traffic more valuable? I just really love to hear people's views of like, not expecting you to rank all of the profit sources in order, but which of the top ones really make the success of these revenue streams more valuable? Because at the range of valuations, like from 1 times revenue to big trading G2C business 17 times. There's obviously value.
Yeah, so before people answer specifics.
Just 1 second, guys, just for the benefit of the people dialing in line, I've got to try and repeat that question. Great strategic question. I think in summary, it's, which of the channels are most important, which of the profit sort of centers or channels are most important maybe to prioritize. And obviously, as an M&A guy, linking that back to valuation, ultimately in terms of driving shareholder value. Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, so I don't know the details of which one of those are most effective, right? But what I can tell you is you talked about profitability, being profitable across more than one channel. The diversification, the profitable diversification across multiple channels will get you 2 to 3x multiples than if you're even profitable on one channel or struggling with one. So there is nothing greater than the profitable diversification across multiple channels. And I don't know, you might know which one you should force rank. I don't think it matters to some extent. You go for the ones that are going to get you the greatest diversification and the greatest profit. And that might be different for each individual, right? The vision's one thing, the details, that might be different for each, but I think the diversification and profitable diversification is where we've seen the greatest value.
Dan?
Yeah, for sure. So this is interesting because it's something I've contemplated a lot the last 12 months, and we're certainly starting to expand now into D2C. We've had a lot of traction on TikTok Shop in the social commerce space, obviously subject to it sticking around. And I think the answer comes down to the perception of the quality of revenue. So we're coming out of this kind of winter, or maybe we're still in the winter, of the Thrasios of the world kind of screwing the Amazon FBA kind of narrative, and we all would have seen the headlines of some of the speculation that went on there at management team level. And and this kind of narrative that D2C is stronger, it's a better quality of revenue, you own the customer. But then you actually start stepping back from that kind of narrative and market pressure and looking at the kind of comparable pros and cons of the two platforms. So on Amazon, sure, there's perception of platform risk, policy changes, lack of control in last mile delivery, complexity of customer acquisition, arguably. I find it less complex. It's inbound versus outbound. And then you look over at D2C, and whilst you've got customer data, you own the customer, you own your own .com, or you can generate first and third party data a lot easier on the platform. You are playing in the kind of TikTok and Meta casinos of the algorithm shifts, and 4 years ago, it was all about interest-based targeting. Now, as the guy rightly said, it's open targeting with content-led strategy, and now it's a bit of a slot machine on trying to find the hook that engages the audience. And 1 week you might get a 5 ROAS, and the next week you might get a 3 ROAS, and you've got to scientifically figure out what the hook was that generated that ROAS. So I think when you actually kind of step back and look at platforms, there's pros and cons on both. I think ultimately it comes down to actually knowing your customer, the ICP, the product type you're selling. Is it even eligible for all those platforms? There are Shopify brands that won't make it on Amazon because they price themselves out the market because there's no pricing pressure. There are a lot of brands on Amazon that will never make it onto Shopify because they can't get the average order value and the lifetime value. We estimate only about 25% of private label brands on Amazon will ever make it onto Shopify. So I think you've got to kind of focus on that and then ultimately determine, to the point, these are different platforms. There is different perception of value. I think Amazon's taking a bit of a discount right now because of the private equity money that came in and kind of pillage the industry a little bit, to be honest. And ultimately, the more profitable I can diversify across platforms and then attempt to measure things like LTV is where it is. But I think to answer your question directly, I think it goes Shopify, Amazon, and I think if you're diversified across both, that's where you get your premium value.
Any other comments on that question?
Yeah, I'd agree with everything said. It's really about what your specific goals are for the brand, right? And what you're trying to achieve, and what channel is ultimately going to help you accomplish those goals faster. Like, for example, if subscription-based is really crucial for you to be successful, but you're having a really tough time getting foot traffic to your direct site, you're never going to get the traffic that Amazon gets. So you leverage that as the marketing channel and tool that it is to really, get eyeballs there and potentially move to an SNS side. But I agree with everything. It's just a matter that number and those goalposts change, I think, consistently depending on what you're trying to deploy. But profitability is king, as always.
I mean, obviously, subscription is a game changer from a valuation multiple perspective. So, that's only available on certain channels. Any more questions, folks? Ari.
Platform out there, you're going to Miracle, which is now anybody effectively to put their marketplace, which is a dominant channel, sort of journey more challenging for brands. Have you guys thought about that? Your brand, how do you play that? How do you get on there? Any good tools out there to help you figure out which channels to go with the next channel? But
Yeah, I think you can come at this from a supply chain perspective, which we've looked into. We're actually talking at the moment, looking into the solution. And then from a kind of growth and acquisition perspective, I think it's always the Pareto principle of the 80.
Going where the attention is, yes, it turns out to become to disrupt is because the platform most of the attention is the same. So we spent 2 years trying to drive TikTok attention to Amazon with very little attribution and broken attribution and all the stuff that goes on there, so it's very difficult to attribute. The minute they roll out a shop platform in September of 23, all of a sudden it was converted like crazy at volume because TikTok owns attention right now. So I think all these platforms coming through, there's another interesting one. Whatnot, you've seen it, the live selling platform. I've got a friend who half on that right now. What he's doing is got small industry like a warehouse, just selling shoes. Like it's crazy. But ultimately, I think you have to kind of decide when to enter a market, also a platform market, based on their user base, or their intention is going, and how much that market will rise. I think trying to be everything at all times, like the old mentality of going to all platforms. What it does is it brings operational complexity. Operational complexity creates strategic confusion. I think it's about targeted omni-channel, not let's go on.
Yeah, there are, and I think
There are definitely tools out there. I think it does start though with, do you have the right supply chain solution to make one thing Amazon did, they didn't know it at the time, but we created organizational courage because we made the reward over risk. Risk was really low when we tested things, the reward was on the, I think that's true across these multiple channels. You won't know which one's gonna have the highest reward. If we reduce the risk of actually turning those on, you actually create the courage to be able to reward it and make it pretty simple, pretty seamless. And I don't know which one's gonna work. I don't think anybody really knows which one's gonna work. You gotta have the enabler to make that work and reduce the risk of making that happen. We believe that starts with the supply chain. There's other things that gotta happen that needs to happen from that thing that I do think we can take an order from any marketplace, any channel, whether it's a truckload, or a unit, or, and it's all the same. So if you want to turn something on, we don't even know.
That's good.
That's good. Learning how to channel, just enables it to happen, so that risk is super low for them, that if it doesn't work, to address something else. Some of these platforms, some of these technologies, imagine well, the channels getting into the market. So you need I think you should do it, so you're not paying for inventory, extra cost, fixed cost, operating, like you can remove all of those risks. You can have a lot of
Yeah, there are specialized marketplaces. If you use the complexity that I like, you'll find a solution in search. Rhythm comes to mind. So formerly Channel Weather, they put out benchmarking reports all the time. You go and get an idea of like which marketplaces are good for specific categories and segments, get an idea of where, you know, where you start strategic planning, but then again, you let the data tell a story and then adjust basically.
You recommend 3 or 4, but I don't want to give the names of the 3 or 4 because then I'm bad favorite of one of them. But there are 3 or 4 out there that are all really good. It depends on you want Rolls Royce and you want, you know, the Hyundai. They're all going to work for you. Just depending on
Lou, what are some of the lesser known areas for optimization?
Yeah, I think, you know, now we're really starting to talk about fixed cost optimization. Came up a couple times earlier today. But when you think about where can we cut costs in an e-commerce business and you're running lean teams, right? That's about Michael was running a 3-person team doing $20 million, right? It's like, okay, well, where can I cut? For those teams, probably the biggest cut optimizations opportunities are going to be direct shipping if you have an easy side area. If you have a larger organization, though, look at more unconventional areas, right? So do you have employees? Are you paying for an HR system? There's probably some negotiation that we can do with your vendor there, right? Are you paying bank fees? The answer to that question is yes, by everybody in this room, right? And you're paying an exorbitant amount that we can go in and reduce and negotiate without you jeopardizing your relationship with the bank or those vendors. So just looking at fixed costs, I think, is now something that's starting to become very popular. That will continue to become more popular in my opinion.
Thank you. Question from Mike. Now, if someone's in the room, what should I be doing that I'm not doing? Now, what would you say?
Really fun one. Top of mind, not enough people are learning to do video. I've still worked with a lot of people who say, well, I don't have a creative team. This is really expensive. Again, as a lot of people on here, Amazon focus. Amazon has tools to help you create videos for free. They are not good, but they are good enough. But if they is the thing that you're trying to hit. Specifically, I would be pointing out sponsored brand video. I've helped clients grow, call it 6 to 7x last year in the amount of their leveraging sponsored brand video at tremendously strong efficiencies. We're still not talking about huge numbers relative to their total business, but as an incremental addition to their marketing spread, it's been very helpful. And also call out sponsored display video. I will specifically not call out streaming TV. I've run those tests. I've yet to find any area with streaming TV can lead to truly incremental sales at an efficiency that makes sense. Maybe that will come. I'm not going to hold my breath for it though.
Any other comments on the sort of same question?
Yeah, I'll add, definitely different answer, but you're right too. But the number one in
thing we tend to see with first time is really about the time. So many times you plug in there and you see and really like it's one of the three ways you can get it. Maybe it's not quite but at the same time, you're never going to make money on a product. And it got into a letter of church. I asked her that a bunch of people that are sitting up here today and dealt with from different angles, but that's by far the
Got two thoughts. One was like us. We get asked by aggregators, since we have a managed service team, so we enterprise management by aggregators. And we got asked to look over $100 million portfolio this week. And one of the brands that we're looking at our complex supply chain holds way too many SKUs. They've got a warehouse that they enforce, they've got a whole team in Idaho managing this warehouse. It's amazing. But we ran the loss report in Kapoq today. And in this one brand, they lost $10 million in one SKU last year. And the crazy thing is they have the inventory, it's in the warehouse. They just didn't stick it into MBA properly. To your point, Emmett, the final piece that I don't hear talks about a lot, I can't talk to the B2C aggregate side because I'm not that good at it yet, is new product innovation. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen the aggregator market and the operators make over the last 4 years is treating these products like they're retail CPG products. Thinking that you acquire a brand and that revenue retention is going to stay consistent for the next 5 years. And especially not so much in B2C, but in marketplaces like Amazon, one thing they miss is that you're competing for the click in a hungry market of entrepreneurs that are constantly innovating features, form, designs to win that click. So if you're not iterating and innovating new product lines, iterating existing SKU lines, within 2 or 3 years, you've lost the market share, but you've lost the click. And then you wonder where the revenue retention is gone. So the big thing we've focused on, we've got a product team, we've launched 289 SKUs in the last 2 years, 79 new parent lines, 87% of them not in order. The biggest driver of the new net revenue is product iteration, product lines, and a different level of risk within that. But I think those aggregators that refuse to focus on product development, innovation, and just try and acquire the revenue, are really going to get left behind. The existing underlying portfolio is just consistently losing market share because you're losing money.
What kind of guardrails do you put on yourself to win fast and lose fast?
It comes down to having really strict product validation criteria for the platform you're operating on, and tomorrow I'll show you what that criteria is. So for Amazon, we've got a very strict 2-step validation criteria. It's data-driven, and we've got a tool set that can validate products in seconds as the first stage validation. And then the same is true for D2C. If it's more kind of avatar and audience-driven, do you understand the ICP? Is there a bit of a tab around the ICP? Is there a search around the ICP? And do you understand the content engagement? So providing you set that, again, a decision framework. I'm not talking about the playbook of how you go and buy media and buy customers, but a decision framework for the product validation piece relevant to the platform and the audience you've been in front of. And then you just scale it. So we build basically a production line, it's like a car management. And we pump out, we've got 200 and 400 product lines ready to go. We're just seeing capital money in the room. That's to go with.
Great. Any other thoughts on that question? What should I be doing or not doing? We covered that one. This is about. There's a question in the back though. Oh, I'm sorry. Good spot, please.
Yeah.
So, question for the panelists is, we talked about prioritizing profitable channels, routes to market. We didn't maybe touch on offline, to target Walmart, etc., and maybe also thinking about wholesale. We'd like to jump in. I certainly have views which I'll comment on in a moment.
Yeah, if you look at
sales across retail, right, in the US, right? Amazon's got 40% of e-commerce, everybody else is 60%, but the big players from an e-commerce point of view are much smaller than Amazon, right? If you look at online sales, the percent of total sales, right? That's 30%. You look at sort of like the like type of categories. So wholesale bricks, like that is still a very valid, valuable method to sort of grow your brand, diversify your growth. It's also tough to manage. Why once again, requires a supply chain, because if you send Walmart the wrong stuff, like you're never making money on it. Send Amazon the wrong stuff, you're not making money on it. Send Target the wrong stuff. So it's not easy to do, but if we do it well, that diversification across Amazon, the rest of the e-commerce play in the US, and then sort of wholesale, vendor direct, however you want to phrase it, those are all incredibly valuable channels. And the more diversification you have, the greater the valuation you'll have, because you'll be able to weather the storm of somebody makes a change in their perception of you, your product, your value, or they change their rates, or they change something else. You're going to be able to weather that storm because you have that diversification and that predictability, that forecastability, and that reliability of revenue growth is what people pay premium.
Yeah, I think whenever we consider these decisions, and I love the fact that he picks it on 40% of all the e-commerce is Amazon, for the DC in the room is like leaving market share on the table.
If you're not on Amazon, yeah, just sort of silly. 40% of the things get form the Amazonian, so there's some. But
Yeah, I mean, Nike even came back to Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Nike historically was like, we're out, and then they're like, okay,
Just the amount of DC runs that we've helped to get on Amazon, and we get to kind of 7 figures a month on rapid search alone. Like, if you're not optimizing for that, you leave market share on the table. But to your point, I think the decision framework comes back to, is there incremental growth available in the wholesale channel that I'm considering? And it's not just Walmart, Target, the big boys, you've got independent shops. We do really well with subscription box companies. We can add 7 figures of revenue just by getting into subscription boxes. It's very low friction, easy to get into. And then I'm saying, well, okay, what are the terms of this relationship? Is it going to affect my cash flow? Have I got to front some massive cash terms? Do they want some special packaging, or do they need it delivered in a certain way? Is it purely wholesale, or have I got to manage the channel myself? Therefore, I've got to put a playbook for customer acquisition on the channel and staff that playbook. So I think you have to get down into the decision framework of all channels are good to consider as long as they're accretive. But what is the operational complexity and strategic requirements of performing that channel? And do I currently have the time, team, people, resource to be able to execute on that? And then when you come to prioritize all the opportunities, because there are hundreds, you then need to marry that to your own capability, skill set, etc. And go for the path of least resistance and stay close to them.
to be honest where you're not good.
Yeah, and be honest about where you're not good.
Yeah, and outsource it and find partners.
Yeah, like we're getting into retail now. Live over here is leading that, but we're bringing in a consultant to do it. We're only going after cash accretive deals that we can stack on top of our supply terms. We go to China twice a year. We've got very deep relationships. We're passing any requested terms on to the supplier. So we've got to be really strategic about how you do it. But again, size and diversification of margin, not revenue, is what's going to drive the more.
James, want to bring you back in?
Yeah, I'll just speak on some of the valuations I'm seeing. Adding that second profitable channel gives you a much, gives you a big boost in valuation. Adding a third gives you another boost, but that incremental boost to valuation multiple is not as large as adding that second channel. So yeah, it may be the two.
My perspective, I think most acquirers, especially in PE strategics, they want to buy brands that can be. One way to prove that it's genuinely a proper brand longevity is to prove that you can start on the omnichannel journey. You can't, it's hard to sell a business for 15 minutes if you're just one of any of those. You've got to show that you can do offline as well, I think. Even just in a small way. You got to do it right everywhere, is the thing, right? Like it's got to be good everywhere. I can't see this all the time. People like expanding and going, and then their brand isn't represented properly this way. Like, omnichannel to me is like it's starting with the core of who your customer is, understanding them very deep.
and then delivering that message every single time on whatever channel they are, so it's consistent across the board. So the marketing that they see with an Amazon DSP campaign that they hit off Amazon, they're thinking about when they walk into the Kroger, they see your product on the stand, right? Like it's all gotta help each other, but
I will just add one caveat, especially if you're looking at brick and mortar wholesaling, where there's a lot of the ability to price your product once it's sort of left your doors. I've personally run into a lot of issues of you're working with a wholesale program. At some point in time, your products go on sale. You end up losing a lot of the buy box on Amazon because of people who just bought significantly discounted product. And now this is, for the relatively speaking, usually smaller dollars if you're an Amazon first business, you have now set yourself back months of successful work effectively. So just be cognizant of that if you're Amazon first.
Right, let's look ahead to 2025, starting with UKC. We talked about observations, value creation in 2024. What are your top predictions for 2025 in terms of how brands will optimize for value creation?
Yeah, my old boss told me never to say predict the future, so I won't. But service, cost, like trust, and having great products that speak to your customers that you know that will always create great value. And from our perspective, we help with the service, the trust, the cost aspect of it, which can allow great brands to grow. And but I think core of what makes successful e-commerce retailers, any type of retailer, right, in the US, remain the same. Just how can you grab the greatest reward with the lowest risk? That means focusing on what you do best and finding others who can help you expand and diversify for your growth. As everybody said, diversification is sort of part of the
let's see, good call out about predicting. One thing I'm hopeful about, and what I really hope, is that brands just very aggressively destroy the walls that create like silos within their organizations, right? And make sure that operations is talking to retail media and logistics and shipping and product, and everyone is completely informed as to what the general strategy and goals are. So that way everyone can be working together. I can't tell you the amount of times you see these interdepartments at odds with each other and focusing on different strategic initiatives when they're all trying to accomplish the same goal. It's kind of insane. So that would be my predictions, that we see more of that as we're starting to see more of a focus on optimized lean teams, high profitability numbers going forward.
If anybody says we got to split our inventory up, or we got to have one person who's focused on Amazon, you can ignore the person who's focused on Walmart or Shopify or something else, you should immediately say, don't do that, whatever you do. Separate inventory, silos of inventory, silos like completely create. We're seeing that, and that's just the recipe for complexity.
I think for aggregation at scale, the contribution margin game largely figured out, right? For targeting customer acquisition, better supply chain efficiency, better sourcing, deep supplier relationships, platform-specific playbooks. I think where the challenge has been kind of between that and probably operational financing, right, which is the team, right, and the ops and the heads it takes to run these things at scale. So I believe this year what's really exciting, and we're on this track, seeing some speakers this morning, really kind of building the confidence, is where AI is going to come through and drive a lot of operational efficiency in areas like demand planning, forecasting, margin analysis, where we've already built tools and solutions out that tell us exactly the percentages that we need to either reduce the dimensional weight of a product to get down into the lower cost tier, and then go to the supplier with suggestions on how we can do that. And using AI, we can analyze the products and tell us exactly what we need to do in packaging to reduce it by that much weight. So I'm really excited for AI to effectively help us streamline the operational cost of running this stuff at scale to ultimately create a really well margin, which is ultimately going to raise the entire industry. It's going to bring us closer, never going to get there, but closer to SaaS and technology type margin growth, well, maybe halfway there. And I think in terms of acquisition, unless the operating companies are really confident in their frameworks and playbooks, so their decision frameworks, their operating frameworks per platform, which is something we've spent a decade mastering now. I think we're going to see more bolt-on acquisitions rather than large acquisitions. I think we're going to see acquisitions going down the route of
bolting on accretive value to existing success versus kind of these big kind of home run shots into massive acquisitions in new categories or platforms that we don't have the confidence in operating because everyone's obviously like this.
Thank you, John. Mike. So about 3 weeks ago or so, Amazon officially changed from a 4 ads at the top of their search to 5 ads at top of search consistently, I believe, for all customers. We are seeing in 2025 a shift where it wasn't already true. Amazon is paid to play. You cannot be successful without advertising and having a robust ad strategy. But again, and I've said this before, part of that involves knowing when not to advertise. Right now, about 10 out of the top 15 product listings you see on Amazon are going to be an ad. I'd call that 18 and one, the banner at the top of the page. Where I am seeing more people hopefully going, and if you're going to be successful, don't use this as an opportunity to say, tacos is going to go up. Every year tacos goes up. What you should instead is hold a higher bar for where it actually makes sense for you to advertise. You're either not driving one incremental sale, I think every.
I don't think I want to put it on the screen. It's already on the side.
You're either be driving an incremental profit for your business, or you are allowing yourself to find your next customer. If it's driving big, if it's, I'm not gonna say organic rank anymore. Organic rank will always kind of matter, but Amazon is doing their darndest to make sure it matters.
Is this mirrored?
So being more selective with your ad dollars, knowing when to turn things off so that you can reappropriate that spend into on-page listings, pricing changes, more inventory so you can stay in stock. So, you might.
I certainly agree with everything Mike said there, and I think, well, at the risk of making a prediction, I think my prediction would be that the spots where there's opportunity for value creation, 25 and 30.
Oh, I have it. 10.
Are the same place.
Right click on it.
Spots to do that in 2024. It's about executing on the. We already talked a little bit earlier about making sure you stay inside the inventory. I like Mike's points here about really just fundamentally making sure that your advertising strategy is sound, that there are places that you're actually winning are leading to the outcomes that you need, and that they're aligned with the unit economics being for that particular race. And so completely agree that the it's important to pick and choose the right battles. When you're putting those bids out there on PPC, I don't really want to win everything. They only want to win in the places where it makes sense. I think that's what the same. You could phrase it, the friend all phrases it the same thing. I think you just got to execute on the top line goals that 2025 will be.
Thank you, sir. James?
I think that we're going to continue to see the sort of fallout from the first wave of activating strategy. It's not coming through this month. It's a little bit merger or an offloading portfolios, whatever. I don't think that's over.
Is there more than just 16? Or it just happened to work out? There's 16.
Couple thousand. I think the seller expectations.
Yeah, 16.
It's not going to be 2021, but there's size.
This one. Sorry, I don't know if he has slides. Like he isn't.
Any more questions from the audience, folks?
It's the holding site form, but I don't know if the subsequent sites are false. They probably are.
I'm very excited for it. Question was, what do you want to make?
He's texting me. He's trying to go.
Yeah, it's not really to do non-focused station. But if you look at kind of where I'm.
They originally sent me an email that said, and then texted me, check your email. And the email is just
7 years behind Google. And just
virtual presenter.
coming
Can
to
you see
Google,
the
I used to be
link?
design design like.
Why don't you just do that?
Like came from the. That's what. And it's the ability to kind of see the customer journey.
If you do see Charlie, so the right answer is we should project this with Charlie Pin, if we can.
This monetization of it as well, because before you had the SQL, you had no SQL, had no SQL, now you don't need to do that. And I don't think anyone in this room would argue the fact that knowing audiences and how to market them is going to be beneficial. So if you're not using it, I highly recommend you do it not.
Yeah, I mean, that gives.
The views, right?
Audience targeting and,
Go to multi-screen.
segmented and modifier on your manage. That said.
There we go. That's what I'm. That's the winner.
Targeting audiences. I think we were at the box, right, for example, targeting an audience.
They don't test this.
And not only that, I make full sense. We just have to be very careful. Because we gotta test their sure. But obviously, like, stats with it, to use, right? If I show the return on ad spend, it'll be really high. With audiences, it's a little bit easier to do that sort of thing. Then you might be used to it, like, modifier for that sort of thing, where the stats they come back should be a lot more. It's just something that I think.
Also, like, I don't know who's advancing the slides.
I'm very bullish on the concept. I think right now. I think there's a very rosy future that technology is not actually set on for you. If you're speaking from an advertising perspective, you cannot take advantage of that technology, no matter who you are, as well as you could, and even just saying Google 8 years ago. So go into it with the mindset that there's a lot of, I'll say, very loose data in there that I would personally position right now is not as actionable as I would like it to be.
That's kind of the thing with all data though, right? In terms of e-commerce, like you got all this data, but then having actually an action on it and where do I go and how do I actually point and shoot?
That's your certain playbooks, right? It's how you interpret the data, it's a cycle action. It's how you that's the playbook you need to establish to your operational excellence.
We have a few minutes left, gents. What I'd like to do is just ask you all for sort of key call-outs, key takeaways that you'd like to leave with the audience. We'd like
My key takeaways: operational excellence matters, setting decision frameworks, assess your channel specific playbooks and how effective they are, and then underpin it with a dynamic and cost efficient supply chain that keeps you in stock and keeps you agile. I think that's the first one. Second one is don't forget product. Yes, we can buy over product innovation is what drives market share, and with those clicks, understand the customer. Move away from commodity-based, what I call me-too products, where you're just going to sort by Chinese direct kind of manufacturer selling. It's just a race to the bottom on price, building subjectivity around the customer. And then I love the presentation from the Shopify agency on 2025 is the year of authenticity. Gone are the days where kind of branded promotions and branded content converts. People are tired of being sold to. Victory rates are all the time low on branded content. Stuff that works, native, raw, authentic brand communication. It's the ugly ads. It's the true brand story and depth and positioning. Anything in your portfolio that doesn't meet that criteria, whilst it might be delivering today, you really need to be hedging against what it's delivering tomorrow.
I think Dan took everyone's answer in some cases, but no, just kidding. Outside of that, outside of all those things I agree with, and I know I sound like a record at this point, but just really emphasizing areas to reduce and optimize your costs, right? Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. And looking for areas to where you don't necessarily need to deploy investments into costs, right? So maybe it doesn't make sense to build out that fulfillment network if we got a great opportunity here. Just being really strategic about that area of the business, I think is going to give people just another, tool in their kit they're not using as much as they could.
I'd say, there's lots of great things you can do with brand marketing, and I think you're right, people are getting sort of somewhat tired of it. But, Amazon figured out a long time ago, you get it there within 2 days, you convert 40–50% better than if you're gonna get it there in 5 to 7 days. It's still amazing how that doesn't resonate with so many folks, but like, get yourself the capability to get the product to the customers within 2 days. With somebody who can also provide the highest level of service, going back to the fundamentals, at a strong cost scenario for you, so that you got better total landed costs. And it will be both a growth driver of growth revenue, but also margin profitable, and it'll help you diversify and be invested. That's gotta be our message that we give our clients, and one that we wanna hopefully help others be more successful that way.
In the vein of just being as customer obsessed as possible, you should always be asking yourself the very sometimes difficult question: why would somebody buy my product over any other option? And if you can't honestly answer that question with a good reason, no advertise, don't focus on getting as much inventory as possible. If they work on having a product worth buying, especially when you're thinking of, again, I can call it out, the expectation that you'll have one SKU survive forever on Amazon is a very short-sighted one. So be willing to make iterations, find better, be better. And again, I'm the expert in telling you don't spend money until you've done that correctly. Mike?
I'm gonna take a slightly different path there and say that I think one of the really important things to do is just continuously monitor. It's as you pointed out there, the last forever on Amazon, behavior of customers changes, and so it's really critical to make sure that you're tracking as things change, adjusting your strategies, but with that sort of change, make sure you're still profitable on a SKU basis, or if you're not, at least have a plan for hiring. But I think to do any of that is really important that you're actually getting that data and seeing it in a way that's permanent, so you can catch it when changes occur.
James finished. Yeah, and on the M&A side, I think there are going to be more opportunities, and there are going to be more businesses coming on. So the key that acquiror is know your thesis and be disciplined, right? We saw what happened a few years ago. There are going to be opportunities, but know what you're looking for when you find it right. But we don't want to just be scattershot. That's what happened.
This room knows all about that. Yeah, brilliant. On that note, it's 4 p.m. and we will close the panel. So a big thank you to James, Kevin, Mike, really, Lisa, thank you all.